It is Thursday's football show. Nathan with you this evening. Delighted to have John Giles in studio. How are you keeping, John?
I'm good, Nathan. Thank you.
We were just talking off air. I was just saying I'm just back from America, and you were saying how obviously you spent quite a bit of time in North America between Vancouver and obviously you spent a year playing in Philadelphia. I just noticed the owners of the Philadelphia Fury included Rick Wakeman, Peter Frampton, Mick Jagger and Paul Simon.
Yes, yeah. We could have done them with them on the pitch, singing a few songs, I think, Nathan, at the time. Yeah, it was new, obviously new.
So this is 1978, North American Soccer League.
Yes, yeah, with Peter Osgood, Alan Ball.
Wow. And how did the move come about?
I think there was obviously somebody in England. They were English owners, so they had to get a team. A couple of Irish lads came, Fran O'Brien, and I'm trying to think the other lad's name.
Was Pierce O'Leary there? I'm going off Wikipedia here, who says their penultimate game of the season ended in controversy when Pierce O'Leary, on loan from Shamrock Rovers, attempted to attack the referee because a goal was scored in sudden death overtime.
Yeah, that was in Vancouver.
Okay.
Yeah. Pat Bourne.
Right.
Was Fran O'Brien, Pat Bourne came over from Bowes. And these lads were taking lads over from England. Alan Ball was in that. And I was in Ireland at that time.
So you were late 30s at this stage. Was this
what year was it?
1978.
Yeah, I was going on 38 at that time.
So was this a jolly, nice little retirement season, or was it serious?
It was a bit of a moneymaker, to be honest. And experience, funny enough.
Yeah.
You know, it was a great experience. I was amazed at it, the things they had, because I read about the things they were doing in America, which was no such thing as a draw. You had a shootout from the halfway line. You had 5 seconds to get your shots in, which was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
You like that?
It was brilliant.
Right.
It was real football. Like usually it's penalties. This was, a bit of skill to do it.
Would you practice for that?
You could practice for it. Oh yeah, very much so. You had 5 seconds to get your shot in from the halfway line. And one of the big things was about it that there was no such thing as a draw. Well, say you drew 5-5, right? The team got, say, 7 points for a win, but the team that scored the other 5 got 5 points.
So there was an incentive.
There was an incentive to keep going all the time, and it finished up in a draw. Then it went to the shootout, right? And depending obviously if it was a 5-5 draw, the team that won in the shootout got an extra couple of points, but the team that had the 5 got 5 points. So it was encouraging all the time to get goals, no matter what the position was in the match. I thought it was really good, and it was very, very skillful. The shootout.
Interesting that you enjoy. I would have thought that those sort of dramatic changes from what you were used to in English football would have been sort of totally alien to you.
Well, before I went,
they
were. I thought this is typical American. But it wasn't. It was true. There was no draws. It took a bit of skill to win it, but you were also rewarded for scoring, although you were beaten. As you know, in England now, if you're beaten 5-4, you don't get any points. Yeah. And the way it was in America, you got X amount of points for the goal scored plus the win, So I was amazed at it, but I was pleasantly surprised at the way they did it.
And did you take it seriously as a player?
Oh yeah. I played in Philadelphia. I was getting paid to do it, Nathan. You have to do. Yeah, no.
You weren't on holidays?
No. Oh no. Wouldn't be right. You couldn't do that. I couldn't do that anyway.
To link it back,
experience as well, Nathan. Obviously I never played. I had played in America before with Manchester United. Funny enough, when I was young, we went on a tour of North America. We played in Vancouver. We played in Toronto, I think, but mostly in America. We played about 8 to 10 matches, which was madness, really. An awful lot of travel at that particular time. Played in New York. There was a Scottish team. Can't remember what we played. We played them 3 or 4 times in different places. But that was a great experience, there's no doubt. So I knew a little bit about the American football. We weren't playing shootouts at that particular. That was only in 1960, 61, I think 60-61. When I went to play there the next time was 70, 78, so there was a good bit of time.
Yeah.
But I was surprised at how good they were for the crowd, for the rewards for losing the match, and very, very well done. Everything very, very well done. It's a great experience.
So to link it all together into modern day football, did Mick Jagger or Paul Simon ever come into the dressing room to hammer the players for a performance? Todd Boehly
No, we never had it. We never have a Todd Boehly.
Did you have a night out with Mick Jagger?
No, we didn't see him.
Okay.
Funny enough, we saw a couple of the other lads who were keen on the football.
Right.
You know, they used to come into the dressing room when they were there because they were working themselves at that particular time. But we never came across Mick Jagger, no.
So, of the past week of Chelsea, which is the crazier scenario? Todd Boehly going into the dressing room to berate the players after defeat to Brighton, that it was an embarrassment to the club, or Frank Lampard picking N'Golo Kante as a number 10 in the Champions League game?
I think the owner has to come in for it. Todd Boehly, isn't that his name? Yeah, well, I have it written down here. Todd Boehly told the players they were embarrassing, right? And I just wrote down this morning, look in the mirror, Mr. Todd Boehly. I mean, what an embarrassment for him. He's bought all those players. Potter, I'd say no say whatsoever in it. He's got Frank Lampard out, who has obviously got no say. Because if Frank Lampard had to say, he wouldn't allow him into the dressing room to do what he did and say what he did. Like, it's disgraceful. This is the fella that's bought all these players. No doubt about that. It's not Potter and Frank Lampard. But it's not my fault. It's the players' fault, you know.
Would it be very unusual for an owner to go into a dressing room and speak to the players like that?
Yes, definitely. You can't have an owner like in my day. It would have been the director. The director. No way would he be allowed into the dressing room. That's totally against the manager's credibility.
But doesn't that show why Frank Lampard got the job again and took the job again? Because he's the type of personality who would let the manager in and let the owner in.
Yeah, I'd say it's a difficult situation. I mean, from Frank Lampard's point of view, he's out in the wilderness, and he's been made an offer till the end of the season to do what he can do. I can understand it. I think it was a bad move on his behalf because he wasn't in charge of the situation. If he was in charge of the situation, this owner wouldn't be allowed into the dressing room. So Frank has done it to say, well, I might just make it. And I think it's an impossible situation. I mean, they've got about 28 to 30 players, right, who are, a lot of money's been spent on them, not by the manager, by the owner, right? Now, when Potter was there, he was the same. And don't forget, he's what he was called was the head coach. So it means you're not the manager. If you're not the manager, you're not in charge of the buys and selling, right? So he's been kicked out, right? Because he's asked to train, I think it's about 28 players, 30 players, Nathan. You can't, when you're having a training session, how do you cater for 30 players? What do you do with 30 players? The most you do is, say, 15, 16. Now, if he's taking 15, 16 in the club, the other 14 or 15 are put somewhere else, right? That's totally against team spirit. Because the lads who are put somewhere else, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Right? You can't do that. And how do you change that? Say you drop two of that for two of the others during the week. Then those two are going to be saying, what's this all? You can't build a team spirit like that. You can't actually learn what these players are capable of doing when you have so many players in the team. And then this fella, idiot, comes into the dressing room to give them, says he's embarrassed by them. He should have been telling the players he was embarrassed by what he's doing at the club.
It's hard to see what benefit he thought it would bring to going in and speaking to the players. Like, they're hardly coming out of a meeting like that with an owner who I'm sure they don't believe has any great understanding of football.
I don't think he in with that situation. I don't think he was going in to inspire them, Nathan. He was in to humiliate them, right? This is a guy who's bought these players, made a mess of it with the coach that he's gone. He's got Frank Lampard in on a part-time basis. The players are not going to have great respect for Frank Lampard either, because he mightn't be there at the end. Probably won't be there at the end of the season. But he's not taking any responsibility. He's blaming the players, saying they're hopeless. Right? He's created this situation. Potter wasn't buying those players. Right? He's bought loads and loads. He spent what it was 60 million or whatever it is on play. He's done that. The managers haven't done that, right? And he's saying that you're an embarrassment. He's the embarrassment.
One of the remarkable things about Chelsea over the last 10 to 15 years is that despite chopping and changing managers on such a regular basis, success has always continued, and generally the changes have worked. Even if it's a short-term success, they've continued to win trophies. When you look at what's happened under this new regime, and even today they've been linked with lots of the top managers across Europe because of the money you'll have available and because of the history of success. Do you think this is a very different era of Chelsea than we've seen over the last 10 to 15 years?
I think, what was the previous one?
Roman Abramovich.
Right. I think he sacked the managers. But the managers he brought in, allowed to manage. He wasn't buying the players. There was never any, maybe he was in between, but I don't think he was. I think when he got the managers in, don't forget the Real Madrid manager was there, was very successful. He fell out with them. But I think when they were there, they were allowed to do the job. I don't think he brought the players in. This is a totally different situation to this guy, right? He changed managers all right, but they were successful, you say, in what they do, because I think when they were there, he allowed them to manage and get the players in that they wanted. I don't think Ancelotti would have done anything else. If he wasn't allowed to, he wouldn't have taken the job in the first place. But Abramovich was very quick with the manager. If he fell out with them in any way, he didn't like me. He got rid of them because he owned the club. But I don't think he was buying the players. I think certainly if he was, it would have been without the manager's approval. But this guy, from the day he's come in with Potter, don't forget Potter was the head coach. He wasn't the manager.
Well, even with Tuchel. When Tuchel was there first, got rid of him, brings in Potter.
Yeah. And he won the Champions League, as we know. Tuchel did. But apparently the big row there was that
Boehly wanted Ronaldo.
He wanted Ronaldo. And Tuchel quite rightly said, no, I don't want Ronaldo, because the manager has to be buying in the players he wants. So he got rid of him. He's responsible for the situation that Chelsea are in, and he has the cheek then to go into the dressing room and blame the players on it. Now, where does that put Frank Lampard? When the owner comes in and tells him you're a disgrace and all these carry on, and Frank is supposed to be the present manager, trying to get the best out of them. It's a disaster.
As you say, Lampard was in the wilderness, reputation in shreds after what happened at Everton, gets this opportunity. It's been a disaster since his return. They've lost every match. When you watch the performance, firstly against Brighton and then against Real Madrid earlier in the week, and he's trying to do something different. He's not quite playing N'Golo Kante as a number 10, but in probably a far more advanced role than we've seen Kante before. What's he trying to do there?
Well, I think it's desperation, to be honest, because if you look at all the money that this guy spent, they don't have a striker. They don't have a recognised striker, right? And he's bought 25 players. There's nobody scoring goals for them.
No,
you know what I mean. So, like, if you look at the new manager's point of view, Frank Lampard, it's desperation. Who do I put that might get us a goal? Now, if you put what's his name, the number 7,
N'Golo Kante,
he was a terrific midfield player, as we know. I mean, he can't score goals from midfield. He's not a goal scorer by any means. He's a terrific player and he's a great lad. But you're putting him in. That's just desperation. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was the owner's idea.
Yeah, Frank is
not going to say.
Lampard at that stage would stand up to him and say,
"Look, how did you step into it in the first place?" You know, I mean, most people say, "No, not for me." In other words, before you go into a job like that, you have to say, right, this is what I need to do. This is what I have to do. I have to buy players. I have to use this players and use it. Without that, I'm not going in. But Frank is obviously, in my opinion, desperate to get back into the game, right? And I think it's a bad move to do what he's done. I mean, if he said to the owner, right, I'll do it till the end of the season, but I want to be in charge of it. I want to be in charge of the team. Now, that obviously hasn't happened, because this clown wouldn't have gone into the dressing room, tell them he was disappointed, he was ashamed of them, haven't been responsible for it. Whereas Frank, I haven't heard Frank say a word since then.
Yeah, it's a shambles.
Shambles.
Manchester City last night, got the job done. Obviously, the first leg against Bayern Munich was absolutely key. Going to play Real Madrid in the semi-final. A lot of people feel that's probably maybe even the Champions League final, that the winners will come from that tie. When you look at this Real Madrid, or this Manchester City with Erling Haaland in the side, is this the best Manchester City under Pep Guardiola?
Well, he's been successful with all the players, Nathan. He's I mean, he's got Haaland, who is special. I don't think he's ever had a Haaland in the team before, who was the goal scorer, although he missed a penalty, as we know. But it's difficult to know, because he does different things, Pep, as we know. You know, he has players, defenders, right backs playing in midfield. Well, I'll come back to the other thing. Liverpool are actually doing that.
Yeah.
With Trent AlexanderArnold. Now, I think that's the worst thing that Pep does, is play the full-backs in the middle of the field.
Why?
Because the first thing you have to do as a team is defend. You know?
Yeah.
That's your thing. Because every team is going to be on the defensive at some stage.
Is it not, in a strange way, a defensive move, that it means one of your defenders is a very strong defensive player and can slot in at the back when you don't have the ball?
You can't do that, though, Nate. You can't just slot in at the right time. You know what I mean? You have to be there for full-backs on the cover to do various things, in my opinion.
Is there a difference between what Guardiola's doing with Stones and what Klopp is doing with Alexander-Arnold?
No.
In that, is Stones a much better defender than Alexander-Arnold, and actually
but you're not defending
in
in that position, right? When you're playing in the position that Alexander's doing, and the midfield players, the players are playing for City are doing, the priority is to be in midfield. You know, they hardly ever defend. You can't get into a defensive position, Nathan. If the ball's down the left-hand side, and it's Alexander, for example, he's going to see where he can get the ball, right? Now, if you lose the ball, nobody can get back quickly to go into right back position. It's just impossible to do it, in my opinion.
So, with that then, with Manchester City, obviously the Champions League is the holy grail for them.
Yes.
To go and win it. Is this the best position they've been in to go and win it because of Haaland?
Probably, but they're playing Real Madrid. You know, Real Madrid are a real team, Nathan. Real team. You can see that coming. They won it last year. They beat City. You don't see their fullbacks doing what they do. You know, now, I'm not saying that's right all the time, but they've been winning trophies right, left, and centre. The team's getting a bit older, but they're still there. I just think, in principle, having a fullback doing what Alexander does for Liverpool is wrong. I think the fullback's doing for Manchester City. Manchester City will still give up chances, Nathan. I think that's not there. I think with football, in my opinion, football, when you haven't got the ball, you have to defend properly. And when you have it, then you free everybody to do it. But I think Liverpool, obviously, the other night they were brilliant against. We'll come to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about Manchester City. Certainly with Haaland, it's just a machine. You know, we know he missed a penalty, but the way he took his goal, and the goals he took against in the Premier League match. Yeah. One of the goals, it was brilliant. You know, the way he got through. He's a joint of a lad who has the balance of a little fella, which is most unusual. Makes him seem what was good, and a good lad. He's in there now. He's top notch. But it'll be a really, really fantastic draw in the semi-final.
By top notch, do you look at Haaland and think we're watching one of the all-time greats, potentially?
I think so. And funny enough, Nathan, it's not that long ago where people were saying, you know, he doesn't suit the team, or you know, I know there was some.
It's about 2 months ago.
Yeah, we're saying that you know, they're not scoring as many goals as they would do with it shared out. There was somebody well known on.
He's
OTB.
Just scoring all the goals that the midfielders would have scored in previous seasons.
You know, can't do that. I mean, he's what's he scored now? 40. Yeah, 40 odd goals. I mean, you can't say anybody that does that is lucky, or it's just fantastic. He very seldom misses a goal. He gets a chance. Now he's out of the game a lot, like a lot of strikers do, and he depends obviously on the people around him, you know. And he's got good players around him, as we know.
Yeah,
but he does it. The hardest thing in football is scoring goals. He makes it look easy. because he's got such talent. And he's scored, whatever it is, around 50 goals in this season?
Yeah, he's heading for Dixie Dean levels.
Yeah. Like, you'd never thought in the present day football
we'd see anything like that.
We could see this. No, I think we should all admire him and look at him and see how he does it and makes it look easy. Even the other night, the goal he scored, he's half the first touch, it's in the back of the net. He's just a top class player that will, if he barred an injury, he'll continue to score. I think he's a good team lad, a good type of individual. He's not greedy, he's not moaning at anybody, he just gets on with it and keeps scoring the goals. And if you have somebody like that, then you're always in with a shout.
Just the one question on Trent Alexander-Arnold then. So he is being, say, named still as a right back, but is playing most of the time in midfield.
Yeah, he always has, by the way.
Not quite to the extent
not to the extent that he's in there.
If Liverpool, say, were to play Joe Gomez at right back, is Trent Alexander-Arnold good enough to play as a midfielder for Liverpool?
No.
Why?
Because he's supposed to be the right back.
But if he's not the right back, if you took that away from him when you said we're going to play a fourth back and you're going to play him as part of a midfielder,
well, then he's in the middle of the field.
Could he become that sort of player? Because that means maybe...
No, but if you see, when he's going from right back into the middle of the field, he's playing as an extra midfielder to the opposition, right? Now, if they have a full-back and he goes in as a midfielder, now he's against midfielders, right? He's not an extra. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's
not as much space.
He doesn't get the space then. Now, one of the main things when you play midfield is to get the space to do what needs to be done. It takes a lot of great players to be able to do that. So if you're just an ordinary, if he's sending the right back and he's in his midfield, he's going to be marked. But if you go as a midfield, it's like the centre half going into midfield. There's nobody to mark him. But you're missing out in the centre half. In Alexander's place, he's been told to go into midfield, play as a midfielder, right? Now he's an extra midfielder to the opposition. But if he's playing as a midfielder without being the extra man, now he has to make room for himself as the midfielder. Now, whether he can do that or not, I don't know. But certainly at the moment, it's like playing the left back in that position or the centre.
So it's not. If they were to move him there full time, it's just a totally different scenario he'll find himself in, and a totally different impact he'd have to make in it.
Totally different, Nathan. If you're the right back, you're the right back, and you've got three midfield players. Okay, the opposition are marking those three midfield players as tightly as they can, but then the full back comes into that position. He's an extra one, right? So there's nobody there to pick him up from that, unless the other opposition put their right back in there.
Yeah.
To do it. So he's the extra man all the time. When you're the extra man all the time, then you don't have to make the room for yourself that ordinary midfield players have to make. So you gain in one way, but you lose in the other way, right? And you see what happens with Alexander, it goes on his stats. His stats are very good for making goals and maybe scoring the odd goal, right? But there's no stats on Liverpool conceding goals from him not being in the right back position. That doesn't happen because it's very hard to tell whether the goal.
He's not making the mistake. He's not there. Yeah. Just on that game then on Monday night, I think over the last certainly the last time I was on with you, we were talking about Leeds. You felt they probably just about would have enough this season. Yeah. They've taken two almighty beatings at Elland Road. They've now conceded 60 goals this season, more than any other side in the Premier League. They're 2 points ahead of Nottingham Forest outside the relegation zone. Are you starting to get worried?
Yeah, totally. 2 matches home, conceding 11 goals, scored in 2. Bad, Nathan. I didn't think this would happen. You know, I thought they won't win everything, but they'll have enough to do it, and that hasn't happened in the last 2 weeks in a big way. It's not as if you're like beaten 1-0 or 2-1 or you were unlucky. That hasn't been the case. Just defensively, just total disaster. They are missing players, and Patrick Bamford and Tyler Adams were sitting in the stand on Monday night, so there's quality not there. But it almost seemed that once Liverpool got that first goal, that there's no leadership there at all. They just sort of collapsed. There's nothing. I think in the way they play and have played for the last couple of years, Nathan, they're never going to defend well. But what they do have is an awful lot of attacking players that keeps them off defending. It's go all the time, right? That hasn't happened in the last couple of matches, and I think they've always been bad defensively, but teams couldn't get at them that much to
almost a similar situation to Liverpool. At the back, the midfield is letting them down. There's no protection there anymore.
Yeah, but it was different the other way. And again, you go back to Alexander, who played extremely well. He's probably my man of the match because of what he did in midfield. That's like I don't mean that as a contradiction to what I'm actually saying. I don't believe that can happen in every game. It can happen and happen against Leeds. But Leeds, even in this season, last season, even under Bielsa, they never defended well, Nathan. But they were never defending that much. Especially at home, it was go, and scoring quite a lot of freedom to do it, and scoring a lot of goals. Like the other night when Liverpool attacked them, or I've seen them recently, it's just every time they attacked them, scored a goal. Really dangerous for them. I'd be worried. I'd be really worried if I was a mad Leeds fan.
This night next week we'll be reflecting on Manchester City against Arsenal. It's on next Wednesday night. It's sort of been put up as a title decider. Just before we go then on Arsenal, because listen, the pace that Manchester City sets mean that if you draw a game, it's almost seen as a collapse at this stage. For Arsenal, it seems to be the manner. 2 games in a row where they've been 2-0 up and they don't see out the games. Haven't played brilliantly in the first half an hour against Liverpool, the first 20 minutes against West Ham. Is this pressure? Is this a title race? Is it something mental that you feel for Arsenal at the moment?
There'll be some element of that in it, but it'll also be down to the players in the position that they're in at this particular time, Nathan. And my take on it really is from the start. I think when you get into the situation that Arsenal are in, you get to the big matches and there's more and more at stake, and you have to live with that, right? Now, in the 2 matches that they played, they went 2 up and 2 up, right? Now, and when you in the team that goes on to win it, you have to have players in the team, particularly in midfield, say we're 2 up. See, goals should dictate how you can play. Right? If you go 2 up, especially from the midfield situation, right, we've got to get the ball, we've got to keep the ball, we've got to win it. Don't worry about scoring another one at this particular stage. We kill the game. Or we play, that's the way we play because it's 2-0. In my opinion, Arsenal don't have a player in the team that can do that.
Yeah.
I think Xhaka is a disaster. And I think Gabriel is a disaster. And when it gets to the real crunch of playing, these players, in my opinion, let you down. Because there's more importance on it. The longer you go, you have to have the team doing everything right. I don't trust these guys. Xhaka did it at Liverpool. He caused the
riled up the crowd.
Yeah, where everything was going nicely. The Liverpool crowd were having a go at their own team. Everything was fine. They were winning 2-0. You keep that when you're 2-0 up. You keep that. You don't do anything wrong, Nathan. This fella clown makes him. The Liverpool crowd did change, gave them a good excuse not to get onto their own team, and they went on to do it. The Saturday was the same in many ways with Gabriel. The penalty he gave away. It was disgraceful to be doing, and he's always likely to do that. Xhaka is always likely to be a headbanger, and that's what would worry me about Arsenal if I was to be worried about them. That when it comes to the big matches and the run in, there is more tension on it, Nathan. That's why you need the players that are going to do what needs to be done. And unfortunately for Arteta, I think he's done a good job. I think he has a couple of players like those 2 that will let him down.
All right, well, that City game next Wednesday night. We'll have it live for you here on Off the Ball. We'll go a long way towards deciding it. And John, we'll be talking to you next Thursday all about it. Great to see you in studio.